The lunch crowd at Harbor Bean Café in downtown Seattle went silent. Coffee cups stopped halfway to lips. Conversations died in mid-sentence. Even the espresso machine seemed quieter. At the center of the room stood a sharply dressed CEO named Victoria Hayes, one of the city's most recognized business leaders. And in front of her stood a single father holding a tray of sandwiches. A red mark was slowly appearing on his cheek. Victoria had just slapped him. Nobody knew that within the next few minutes, her own bodyguard would suddenly turn pale, stare at the stranger's face, and whisper words that would change everything. "That scar," he said. The cafe became even quieter. Because the scar carried a story no one expected. And the man Victoria had just humiliated wasn't who she thought he was. 38-year-old Daniel Brooks lived a simple life. He worked long hours repairing public school buildings throughout Seattle. Every morning he woke before sunrise, prepared breakfast for his 10-year-old daughter Lily, packed her lunch, and walked her to school before starting work. His life wasn't easy. 3 years earlier, Daniel had lost his wife, Emma, after a long illness. The grief had nearly broken him. There were days when getting out of bed felt impossible. But every time he looked at Lily, he found a reason to keep going. She was bright, kind, and endlessly curious. Daniel's greatest dream wasn't wealth or success. It was giving Lily a stable, loving childhood. Most evenings they spent time together in their small apartment. They cooked dinner, worked on homework, and read books before bed. Money was often tight, but their home was filled with warmth. People who knew Daniel admired him. He never complained. He never asked for sympathy. And he had a habit of helping others whenever he could. If a neighbor needed groceries carried upstairs, Daniel helped. If a coworker needed a ride, Daniel offered one. If someone seemed lonely, Daniel listened. He believed kindness mattered most when nobody was watching. One thing people occasionally noticed was the scar on the left side of his face. It stretched from his temple down toward his jaw. Most assumed it came from an accident. Daniel rarely talked about it. The story behind it remained private. On the other side of Seattle, Victoria Hayes lived a very different life. As CEO of Hayes Technologies, she oversaw thousands of employees. Business magazines regularly featured her success. She was intelligent, ambitious, and incredibly disciplined. But over the years, success had slowly built a wall around her. She had become impatient, judgmental, quick to assume she understood people after only a glance. Many employees respected her leadership. Few felt comfortable around her. Victoria often believed efficiency was more important than empathy. And that mindset would soon lead her into one of the biggest mistakes of her life. That rainy Thursday afternoon, Daniel stopped at Harbor Bean Café after finishing work. He had promised Lily her favorite turkey sandwiches for dinner. The cafe was crowded. Business professionals filled most of the tables. Daniel waited patiently in line. When his order was ready, he carefully balanced the tray and turned toward the exit. At the exact same moment, Victoria entered the cafe while speaking on her phone. Distracted by a heated business conversation, she moved quickly through the doorway. The collision happened instantly. A cup of coffee tipped. A few drops splashed onto Victoria's expensive designer jacket. The room gasped. Daniel immediately stepped back. "Oh, I'm so sorry," he said. "Are you okay?" The spill was minor. A napkin could have solved the problem in seconds. But Victoria was already furious. "Do you have any idea what this jacket costs?" she snapped. Daniel remained calm. "I'm sorry. It was an accident." People nearby exchanged uncomfortable glances. The situation should have ended there. Instead, Victoria's frustration exploded. She accused him of being careless. She criticized his appearance. And then, in a moment she would later regret for the rest of her life, she slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the cafe. Daniel stood frozen. Not because of the pain. Because of the shock. The room fell silent. Everyone stared. Victoria seemed prepared to continue her lecture. But then her bodyguard, Marcus Reed, suddenly stepped forward. His expression had completely changed. He wasn't looking at Victoria. He was staring directly at Daniel. Specifically, at the scar on his face. Marcus looked as though he had seen a ghost. "No," he whispered. Daniel blinked in confusion. Marcus took another step closer. "Sir, is your name Daniel Brooks?" Now it was Daniel's turn to look surprised. "Yes." Marcus's eyes filled with emotion. For several seconds he couldn't speak. Then he said something nobody expected. "You saved my life." The entire cafe watched in disbelief. Victoria slowly turned toward her bodyguard. "What are you talking about?" Marcus swallowed hard. 8 years earlier, before becoming a security professional, he had served as a firefighter. One winter evening, a warehouse fire had trapped several people inside. During the rescue operation, part of the building collapsed. Marcus became pinned beneath heavy debris. Smoke filled the air. Visibility disappeared. The structure was moments away from total collapse. Most people outside believed nobody could reach him in time. But one person went back inside. Daniel. At the time, Daniel had been working nearby. Without hesitation, he entered the burning building. He found Marcus trapped. Using every ounce of strength he had, Daniel freed him and guided him toward an exit. Just before escaping, a falling piece of metal struck Daniel's face. The injury left the scar he carried to this day. Marcus survived. Daniel disappeared before reporters arrived. He refused public recognition. Marcus had searched for years, hoping to thank